Before the lecture commences, may I invite Professor Hong Bin Tai, Dean of Hong Kong U Business School, to deliver his welcoming remarks. Professor Tai, please.
Professor Edward Chen, distinguished guests, distinguished panel members, moderators, and colleagues and friends and students and alums. It's great to see such a wonderful crowd here in this hall. So it's my great pleasure, great honor to welcome all of you to the Edward Chen Distinguished Lecture Series. After 2 years, it's great to resume this wonderful event. And on behalf of Hong Kong U, on behalf of the Hong Kong U School Faculty of Business Economics, I would like to thank all the members of the organizing committee for putting together this wonderful, wonderful event. And also I would like to thank all the exceptional, distinguished panelists and the moderators. Now, I think looking at this stage, looking at these people, I can't think anything more distinguished than this group of people. So let's give them a warm round of applause. Thank you all very much. But the last but the most, in some sense, I would like to thank Professor Edward Chen, because we're all here because of you. Thank you so much. Thank you so much. Hong Kong U has a great tradition in education in business and economics dating all the way back to 1941. And Professor Edward Chen, I think, is a role model in that great tradition. As a dedicated teacher, dedicated scholar, dedicated mentors, who has made important impacts to so many students, so many generations of students who later on making all sorts of contributions in the society. Today in this hall, so many of the students that benefited from the mentorship, teaching, and guidance from Professor Edward Chen are here today to celebrate his contribution and his tradition. So we're so happy to take advantage of this event to celebrate that great tradition. But this is also the great tradition that the Faculty of Business Economics at Hong Kong U relies on to build its own future and develop itself into a leading institution in economics and business in Asia. So 20 years ago, Hong Kong U formally set up the Faculty of Business Economics. So this year is our 20th anniversary. And this is a special event to celebrate the 20th anniversary of the Faculty of Business Economics. Even though this is a very young faculty, it's the youngest faculty among the 10 faculties in Hong Kong U, but the Faculty of Business Economics has grown steadily and then towards becoming a leading institution in business education in Asia. And despite the challenging times that we're facing in Hong Kong here, both from the social movements and from pandemic and from other challenges that we all face, the faculty has progressed quite remarkably over the last 20 years. Now, both in terms of faculty strength, in terms of research ranking, we are one of the very top business schools in Asia. If you look at some of my colleagues send me some recent statistics. For example, in finance, our publication in the top 3 finance journals this year is ranked among top 5 in the world. And this is a quite remarkable achievement given how fast we've been progressed. All of our education programs are very popular, probably the most popular within its category. And our MBA program has been ranked consistently in the top in Asia. With the support of Hong Kong U, we are moving to a new iconic campus in Poplar Road in a number of years. And we're building a center in Beijing in the headquarters of Asian Infrastructure Investment Bank. We're building a center in Shenzhen. We're building in Tel Aviv, Hong Kong Yew Innovation Hub, and we're building a center in Ho Chi Minh City called Hong Kong Yew East Vietnam Center. So we're making our presence to globally and as well as in China. So to me, all the progress that we made in the faculty is just one example of what can be accomplished in Hong Kong. So sometimes my colleagues often say to me that I'm one of the most optimistic person about Hong Kong. To me, my experience here in Hong Kong U at Hong Kong U Faculty Business Economics just tell me that Hong Kong has so much potentials. And if we can work together to realize those potentials, nothing is impossible. So this is the example of the way of thinking for this theme, today's theme of this event, which is we're thinking about Hong Kong's challenges, opportunities. So with that, I want to thank all of you again for coming to this event, and I'm sure we will all have a very enlightening, stimulating event. Thank you all very much. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Tsai. Please be seated. May I now invite Mr. Feng Hing Wang, convener of the Executive Committee, Edward Chen Distinguished Lecture Series, to give us a brief introduction of the lecture. Mr. Feng, please.
Professor Chen, Professor Tsai, distinguished speakers, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. On behalf of the Executive Committee of the Edward K.Y. Chen Distinguished Lecture Series, I would like to extend the warmest welcome to you to the lecture today. This distinguished lecture series was initiated by a group of alumni of the University of Hong Kong who were graduates in the early 1970s. I'm privileged to be one of them. The purpose is to show the deepest respect to a beloved teacher and a distinguished scholar, Professor Edward K.Y. Chen, who has not only imparted to us knowledge and insights in economics, but also inspired us in various ways throughout our career and personal development. For those of you who could read Chinese, you will notice a Chinese maxim on the poster and the cover of the brochure in your hand, which reads, 尊師重道. It embodies an important core value or virtue in the Chinese culture, telling us to show respect and appreciation to our teachers and mentors. We trust this is what has helped the Chinese culture to be one of the most sustainable cultures in humanity. We would like to share this thought with the audience whenever the distinguished lecture is held. Started in the year 2007, the lecture is now in its 15th year, and this is a special time for Hong Kong. Next year, 2022, marks the 25th anniversary of the return of Hong Kong to China. It is the most opportune time for us to examine how Hong Kong can maintain its advantage and develop its role as a world city and international financial sector amidst the fast-changing global landscape. We are very privileged to have 4 young business leaders who are from different professions and engaged in different businesses, joining us today to share with us their views and thoughts about Hong Kong in the next 25 years. We are also most pleased to have 2 heavyweight moderators in various senses to conduct the panel discussion that will follow after the speakers deliver their speeches. They will be introduced when it is their turn to speak. Ladies and gentlemen, on behalf of the Executive Committee of the Edward K.Y. Chen Distinguished Lecture Series, I would like to take this opportunity to congratulate the Business School on its 20th anniversary and its remarkable accomplishments, and to thank the Business School for the support rendered to the organization of the lecture. Special thanks must go to Ms. Bernadette Cheuk, Associate Vice President, and her colleagues from the Development and Alumni Affairs Office, who have been working closely with the committee from day one the lecture series was initiated 15 years ago. I must also thank all the donors for their generous contribution in support of the distinguished lecture. Let me finish by wishing you all good health and a most enjoyable evening. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Fong. Please be seated. Our lecture will now begin. Let's give a round of applause to all speakers and moderators on stage. Our first speaker of the night is Ms. Gigi Chao. Ms. Chao is the Executive Vice Chairman of Cheuk Holdings Limited, mainly engaged in property business. Ms. Chao graduated in architecture with honors from the University of Manchester. She had worked with prominent British architect and urban designer Sir Terry Farrell in London and Hong Kong, where she participated in projects such as Callan Station, Chin Man West Station, and various design competition submissions for prominent iconic buildings in mainland China. Ms. Chao is the co-founder of Hong Kong Marriage Equality. She also manages a family office and advises global organizations on diversity, inclusion, and ESG business responsibility in building social capital. May we now invite Ms. Chao to proceed to the lectern and share with us her insights. Ms. Chao, please.
Thank you, Fred, Victor, Professor Edward Chen. Thank you for the opportunity to have me here in such esteemed company. We are at the precipice of a new chapter for human civilization. It's a new chapter for our city, our businesses, and our institutions too. As technology continues to disrupt human relationships and how we conduct our lives, it also challenges the governance of our countries, the security of everything from great nations to individual data privacy. In the past 20 years, technology has given us the power to connect and find information instantaneously. It has provided wonderful conveniences, but at the same time, greatly unsettled the lives of many people. Compared to the prior 50,000 years of human history, if you consider the speed at which this very interconnected world of free sharing information has transformed not just the physical outlook of our Earth, but also the world of the human intellect, you'd be forgiven for feeling a little overwhelmed. The future of technology will be even more immersive, an embodied internet where we will be in the experience, not just looking at it through screens. How will this further shake and shift the landscape of our world? And where will the tremors be felt most critically? One of the most significant challenges and opportunities for the next 25 years is video games. Yes, I said video games, but let's back up here. They're no longer called video games. It's just called gaming now. It's not the 1980s anymore. It's called esports, augmented reality. But whatever you call it, the broader human condition is quickly shifting into the metaverse. On the one hand, you have some that are inclined to be quite afraid of this world, spiritual opium, a waste of time and energy, bad for your eyes, bad for your brain. Promotes violence, antisocial, and most probably addictive. On the other hand, we have some people calling it the future of entertainment. AR, VR will soon integrate work, play, finance, social interactions, sports, education, fashion, reduce the average person's carbon footprint by minimizing physical travel, and generally just save the Earth from the demise of humans trampling. What this dichotomy represents is the disparity of digital experience of a vast human population, and with that, the gap in access to active engagement with information and tech. This also exacerbates generational differences, especially important in Hong Kong, as we enjoy one of the longest life expectancies in the world. As with tech, the rules now demand an alignment to the politics of our country of sovereignty, and our loyalty to the motherland will be a clear area of focus in the foreseeable future. How Hong Kong assists the maturation of the Chinese economy and Chinese people into a developed economy of currently 40 million SMEs will actually be an existential question. I think some reference to Chairman Xi Jinping is in order here. In the governance of China, I've picked out some lines that I really enjoy and I'd like to share. On page 503, on page 503, meet the people's expectations for a better life. We should endeavor to build a world of common prosperity, free from poverty. We should endeavor to build a world that is open and inclusive, a world free from isolation. The flourishing of civilization and the progress of humanity will not be possible without enhancing common ground, openness, inclusiveness, exchanges, and mutual learning among civilizations, and agreeing to disagree. We should work together to bring down cultural barriers, reject prejudices that stand in the way of human interactions, and eliminate cultural bias that prevents people from engaging with one another. Finally, we should build a green, clean, beautiful world. The earth is the only shared home for humanity. As one of the founders of Hong Kong marriage equality, I'd say I couldn't say it better myself. A good example of common prosperity, which is in vogue line these days, is Charles Lee, previously CEO of our stock exchange. Now he's found MicroConnect, and he connects liquidity with businesses that are in the grassroots of China. Previously, it was quite difficult to fundraise. Now you don't actually just need stock exchanges. You can invest directly in small mom-and-pop companies, and through fintech, digital payments, we can achieve automated revenue sharing in a transparent manner. The boom in real estate, traditional banking, manufacturing, that saw Hong Kong and our motherland reach new heights of wealth starting from the 1990s up to now are quickly becoming legacy systems. And we now stand on the transition to a more radical and fast-moving tomorrow. And you've all come to hear maybe what this tomorrow will bring. All this being quite vicious, let's read some poetry. Today, let's Robert Frost. Some say the world will end in fire. Some say ice. From what I've tasted of desire, I hold with those who favor fire. But if I had to perish twice, I think I know of hate. To say that for destruction ice is also great and would suffice. I've only got 1 minute left. I'm only halfway through. So I will skip to the end and say, if I am to give any snippets of direction, to say how to prepare ourselves for the weird and wonderful world of tomorrow, I would say learn technology, learn coding. And this is not just for the young people. We live a long time, you know. It's just like learning a new language. I'm 43, I'm learning coding. And from there, the world of open source technology is at the same time generous and exhilarating. Given patience and perseverance, it's very rewarding. There's a huge shortage of talent, and that's probably one of the biggest risks that we face. So my advice is to become a developer. That's what they call the techies these days. And from there, you'll find even more resources and mind-bending opportunities at your fingertips. I'll end with a quote from Marie Curie, who said, "Nothing in life is to be feared. It is only to be understood. Now is the time to understand more so that we may fear less." Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Chao. Our second speaker is Dr. Adrian Cheng. Dr. Cheng is a global business leader, arts patron, and philanthropist based in Hong Kong. Dr. Cheng is the CEO of New World Development Company Limited. His vision to weave sustainability, culture, innovation, and community enhancement into business is embodied in iconic landmark projects, a majority of which are under the K11 brand, across mainland China and Hong Kong. He is the first CEO in Asia to be named Shared Value Advocate of the Year, and for the second year in a row, because of his dedication to creating shared value, linking business success and social progress. Dr. Cheng is a graduate of the Harvard University. May we invite Dr. Cheng to share more with us. Dr. Cheng, please.
All distinguished guests, Mr. Patrick Neff, Professor Arthur Lee, Professor Edward Chen, Professor Chang Bing, Dr. Victor Fong, Professor Frederick Ma, members of the organizing committee, distinguished guests, ladies and gentlemen, good evening. We have only 8 minutes, so I have to cut to the chase. So I'll be very quick with what I want to say. The topic today is about next 25 years of challenges and opportunities for Hong Kong. So basically, in short, what do we want Hong Kong to become, right, in 25 years? And how do we actually progress to become that? For the past many years, past decades, Hong Kong has always been growing in an S-curve, right? In the 80s, from industrializations, we enabled Hong Kong to become current financial center. Hong Kong is a trading port. But what's the next 25 years, right? From what my vision is that I hope Hong Kong will transform from just finance and service heavy economy into a creator economy. The idea of what we call the creator economy is that we focus on creators built by creators. And creators are the ones to create IPs, products, brands, content, and making an impact to the society in the areas of across drug innovation, life science, Web3, metaverse, all these. So the idea of creator economy, it's a new form of thinking, because we have been a service industry, very service focused for the past many decades. But in the future, in order for Hong Kong to really grow, what we need to do is we need to create. Okay, and a lot of people say, have we been creating? We have been creating, but yes, we have been servicing a lot as well. Okay, so, and who are these creators? And do we know or understand these creators? These creators are the next gen born after 1987. It could be the Gen Z, Gen Alpha, Gen Beta, and they are called the post-millennials. They are the people who's going to run Hong Kong in the next 25 years. And they will be also our future talents, customers, business decision makers, philanthropists, and the world will be very different. So the paradigm shift is happening, and we need to prepare for that, because our future creators, our future talent will be very different from ours, and we need to prepare for that. So my first question is, are we really empowering our next generation enough to become future creators? and how we're actually grooming our next generation in leadership, entrepreneurship, and creating this ambience for our creators. And given that for me to move Hong Kong away from just services economy to creator economy, how are we going to empower our next generation? How are we going to empower them to think globally as well? You may think, we are an international city and we are international, but you think about it. We import a lot of international ideas. We are a trading partner. We service a lot of international clients. But are we really creating and generating enough to export? Are we really creating enough IPs, brands, products, exporting them and promoting them to the world? And I will argue that Hong Kong has a unique edge to provide the creator economy infrastructure. It got the infrastructure to power Web3, AI, AR, robotics, science, innovation, consumer products, lifestyle brands, F&Bs, anything that we can create to export globally and internationally. We have a lot of future talents to become the creators because we are an East meet West city where we absorb a lot of international ideas and we can actually fine-tune or we can create our own. And we need to give the post-millennials the right tools and platforms and ambience to actually create. And also, lastly, I think Hong Kong has always had this competitive edge because we know how to monetize. We have a very well-protected intellectual property safety net to help adapt content creation to the commercial world. And this is very important, and the market knows it because we have the smart money in GBA also knows about this. GBA is the Greater Bay Area, we have this region, and we also have the world. Another paradigm shift aside from the creator economy is beliefs and values of the post-millennials. And what they crave is purpose over profits. Again, Hong Kong Next Gen grew up with several issues: income disparities, sluggish social mobility, dying planets, displacements of housings, sustainability issues. There are a lot of issues that they're really facing. And what the private sector need to understand is that we can no longer only focus on profit. Charitable efforts and business opportunities should be intertwined. So in the coming 25 years, if you want to build a long-term business, your profit must be tied with social progress. And at New World, we see that as a creating shared value. And the biggest challenge is when you use the word social progress, it sounds like you're giving away profits, but actually instead it's not true. What you're doing is basically sharing our resources and sharing my values, the corporate values, with society. An example is that we have created a housing NGO called the New World Built for Good, a nonprofit social enterprise we launched in September to help solve Hong Kong's housing issue creatively. And the goal is to use our strength to explore innovative housing models for Hong Kong. Aside from transitional housing for the underprivileged, we are also creating some innovative housing business models. And we want to give the public very affordable homes and create a win-win situation for the government, the public, and the businesses. Although by the same token, achieving carbon neutrality is a must in the next 25 years. If policy don't change, by 2050, sea levels will rise by 20 to 30 cm and around 200 million people will be displaced. So it was not an option, but a life and death matter to the next generation. So for all these issues must come together, and businesses must work together with the governments and with you to achieve our future 25 years. So in short, to quickly sum up, I'm 100% optimistic about the next 25 years because our talents show that our great potential to become the driver of the creator economy. But we must change our behaviors in order to connect and engineer it. We think we know our future talents, and we know the post-millennials, but I'll tell you it's not true. We think we are creating, but we're not. Okay? The DNA has to change a little bit and slowly progress. First, understand your future creators and their values, learn about their passions, and act on them. Second, we must prioritize purpose over profits. And last but not least, businesses need to build trust and empower creators and the next generation. Thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Cheng. Our next speaker is Mr. David Liao. Mr. Liao is a group executive of the HSBC Group and co-chief executive of HSBC Asia Pacific alongside Surendra Rocha. Mr. Liao is a member of the HSBC's Group Executive Committee and serves as Executive Director on the HSBC Asia Pacific Board. He is also a member of the Beijing Municipal Committee of the 13th Chinese People's Political Consultative Conference and an advisor on the International Business Leaders Advisory Council for the Governor of Hubei. Mr. Liao joined HSBC in 1997 and served as President and Chief Executive, HSBC China in 2015 to 2020. Prior to his current role, he was head of global banking coverage for Asia Pacific. Mr. Liao holds an honors degree from the University of London. Now let us invite Mr. Liao to share with us his view. Mr. Liao, please.
Thank you so much, Professor Cheng, Victor, Fred. Thank you for the invite. Privileged to be here and in trepidation. I just want to qualify my presence here. My parents, who were both from the Hong Kong University, they were just here. Thank you. A couple of weeks ago, architectural lecture of sorts. They're presented with speeches, and it's all very emotional. I later found out there was some Hong Kong University publication that had my mother right outside Loke Yew Hall, and it's quite sensational. And today, the son is here speaking. Having said all that, they still chose to go to a concert instead. So, knowing me very well, just want to qualify the time you're spending here. But it's their choice. And today I probably want to talk about the next 25 years of Hong Kong, which largely depends on choices. And it's the choices of people here, it's the choices of the next generation, it's the choices of people who come here in the next 25 years that add and build to this wonderful city. As a banker, it's really a rather simple choice. I would rather spend my time quiet here, listen to great ideas from yourselves as well, and then lend you money. And then I'm so assured of the outcome that we're building a wealth business in order to manage your wealth after you've made the money. Now, the bank is very convicted in Hong Kong. I have to say, having spent 15 years in Shanghai, and having come back last year, we renewed our group strategy. We're spending over 6 billion in Asia, a bulk of which will be in Hong Kong, will be in wealth, and will continue to build the business. But I just remain to be surprised how interwoven to the society the bank is, and that comes with a lot of duty. And the choice is therefore to grow with the people here. The choice is therefore to make sure our services and our banking is relevant. Gigi spoke of, and also Adrian spoke of technology. And we don't want to be banking of yesterday. We want to be a banking of tomorrow. There's a lot of technology at play. The choice of crypto, NFT, they are arguably voices of challenges of the incumbent. Has the incumbent served the people, served the millennial, or have we not? Have we used our empowerment the right way? Are the new technology serving the right way? Are we engaging these new mediums of finance into financial crime, into responsible usage of these mediums? These are all choices, and and it's for Hong Kong and the people in Hong Kong to make that choice, and banks in Hong Kong to make that choice. And I think it's something to think about. Sustainability, both a responsibility for institutions, corporates, and individuals. It's really a godsend in many ways, this particular challenge. It is something that cuts across borders, cuts across languages. If we believe in the science, there is no border, there is just an outright goal that translates carbon emissions into temperature rises. So I think, what are the choices? The choices are that Hong Kong doesn't look at ourselves in isolation. We are part of a global community. We are there to do our part as an individual, as a bank, as a group. We can't draw borders of what's in Hong Kong and what's in London. We're pledging $1 trillion worth of financing to ensure that we're moving towards sustainability. We are helping OECD countries to drive net zero in 2030, non-OECD in 2040, just really riding on that rigor. It will be an evolving science that we all need to embrace and learn, and how to look after the world. But we also need to look after in Asia, emanating from Hong Kong, what is responsible stewardship. There are tremendous transition complexity in Asia that we need to look after. We can't just switch off people's lights in India, in Pakistan, in China, elsewhere. So these are choices that we have to make in both sides with rigor. Sorry, I only had 3 minutes left. As an individual, born in Hong Kong and raised in Hong Kong, spent a bit of time in UK and 15 years in China, it's a choice to learn to love this city. It's a choice to learn what this city means to you, drive your identity and purpose within the country that you are in, but also within the international perspective that this city deserves. Given Gigi quoted, I should quote in the last bit, and the other exciting role is that as a Christian is exciting, because exciting times this generation. This will be the first time in history that all across the globe, because of technology and because of our reach for each other, every nation and every language will have a chance to hear the gospel. And I'm just going to quote from Matthew 24:14, what it says about that. And this gospel of the kingdom will be preached in the whole world as a testimony to all nations. And then the end will come. So I'll leave that to you for thoughts. It's always up for interpretation, but time is short and we need to make the right choices. Thank you.
Thank you, Mr. Liao. Our last speaker is Ms. D Poon. Ms. Poon is the Managing Director of Brands and Distribution at the Esquel Group, a leading global textile and apparel manufacturer with operations worldwide. Ms. Poon is a member of the International Advisory Committee of Harvard University Asia Center, member of the Family Advisory Council of the Ownership Project at Oxford Said Business School, and member of the Global Steering Committee of Social Entrepreneurship to Spur Health in Hong Kong and London. In 2014, she was named by the World Economic Forum as a young global leader and was designated a fellow of the Aspen Institute's China Fellowship Program. May we invite Ms. Poon to enlighten us with her sharing. Ms. Poon, please.
Professor Chen, Uncle Victor, Fred, ladies and gentlemen, Speaking last, I think there's very little that I can say that you've not heard yet. So perhaps let me start with a story that on this stage is mine and mine alone, that of our company, Esquel. Esquel is a Hong Kong-based company that began in apparel manufacturing in the 1970s. By our 40th anniversary in 2018, we had become a vertically integrated cotton, textile, and apparel manufacturer, working from seed research and experimental farming all the way to the final shipped garment on behalf of notable brands around the world. And then the world changed. Not to say we didn't see it coming, but geopolitics and a global health pandemic rocked everything. Today, we move towards creating our own brands and selling the technology that we have created through our operations. We are smaller, but we continue to fight climate change and the wealth gap. And we have recently committed to a net zero strategy that we announced just 2 weeks ago. Over the years, we have transformed from making and selling products to marketing our intellectual capital and our values with our voice to the market. Our story is one of an SME, and yes, we are an SME, powered with education and ethics. And I trust that in Hong Kong, there are many others like us. As a private company, it has been our privilege to be always able to optimize against the KPIs that we believe matter. This is why Esquel has always been able to be a values-driven organization. With the corporate motto, making a difference, we believe that our goal is not only to thrive in the market, but to create positive value for our workers and the communities where we work, and to ensure that we're working sustainably so that we can grow stronger communities where people will continue to thrive. We have always believed that our work includes ensuring that the jobs we create in an industry not known for its social practices are both well-paying and safe, and within a community bound by trust and respect. We've been working on environmental solutions for over 20 years in an industry often described as the second most polluting in the world. And today, as technology transforms how manufacturing takes place, we consider the person operating this machine as much, if not more, than we consider the technology itself. Good jobs are not just jobs that pay well, but that engage a person without depleting him or her in mind, in body, or in spirit. As to the larger business context, I believe the next 25 years will see a transformation of the concept of value. Businesses exist to create value, to create products and services that people are willing to pay for to make their lives better, and in the process to compensate those who have participated in that creation. Yet we seemingly have oversimplified our goals and our purpose of being. I liken it to saying that business has been on a keto diet with the aim mainly to look thin, beautiful, and wear a lot of Gucci. But perhaps we are now waking up to the fact that we should eat for holistic health. Businesses need to serve its customers, its shareholders, and most importantly, its stakeholders. Businesses need to be responsible for the communities in which they exist, not only as an act of self-preservation, but as a core ethical value. Products should be created with the customers first, not marketability. Taking a step back, the coming technological revolution will force us to confront what it means to be human and what it means to lead a good life. We have an opportunity to build a structure in which humans thrive with the support of technology, rather than to end in a dystopian society where technology alienates us from ourselves and from each other. Our current environmental crisis forces us to consider our responsibilities to our communities, both local and global, and both present and future. And finally, our societal discontents and the crisis in mental health insists that we redesign the infrastructure and the structures of our lives. While not being able to travel has been a real change for me, having spent the last 18 months here in Hong Kong, I've really come to see how much we have to offer. From our ability to ramp up production of masks and COVID tests, to the artists and musicians who've been playing over at the Live House and the Box in West Kowloon, to all of the different cookies that I've bought over Instagram and that have kept me going through this long, arduous period. We are so creative, so capable, and so dynamic. Many years in the making for sure, the success of the opening of M+ earlier this month is a testament to our desire to value and to develop alternative modalities of human expression and to celebrate the human experience. From every level of society, even in the darkest days of COVID, we in Hong Kong have found ways to adapt, to transform, and to continue to thrive. My view of the future is based on my view of the past. Through my lens, I see Hong Kong in its transition from a trading port into a manufacturing hub, and then a financial center, and now the green shoots around technology. We've come a long way, which gives me confidence in our ability to go farther. I see us progressing towards becoming a center of creation and values for and from all. I see this being the future because this is what we are asking for, and this is already what I see and what I see many do. It is certainly but a possibility, but it is very much in our reach. Thank you very much.
Thank you, Ms. Poon. We will now move on to the panel discussion. Today, we are honored to have two moderators, Dr. Victor Fung, former chairman of Hong Kong Youth Council, and Professor Frederick Ma, honorary professor, HKU Business School. Without further ado, I will now pass the floor to our moderators for our panel discussion.
Uncle Victor first.
No, Uncle Fred have to kick this off. You're the real moderator, please.
No, Uncle Victor will ask the first question. I will follow suit.
Okay, well, the first thing I'd like to say is really a great pleasure to be back here in Loke Yew Hall. I miss this place, and it's great to be back. And the second thing is obviously, the more I sit here and listen to the remarks of our next generation of leaders, the more I'm inspired and more optimistic I feel about the future. I think, all of you have really had in-depth insights into what you really think, your values, and what you really think about the future. But there are a lot of common themes that run between you. I think every one of you talked about technology. That obviously going to be an enduring theme. And I think in one way or another, I think all of you have mentioned the whole concept of creativity and how do you create. So let me ask the first question. As far as I can see, Hong Kong being a very externally oriented society, externally oriented community, we're impacted hugely by the forces of the world, right? Not only from China, the mainland, and our motherland, but also externally in the whole world. And as far as I can see, there are really three main forces that have been impacting us for the last decade. One is, I think, the geopolitics. I don't think I need to say more. Every day you open up the newspaper, there's more developments on the geopolitical front. And that is certainly a major factor. The second one is technology. But I would actually take that to a little more detailed level. It's the digitalization of everything that we see in the world and the progress of digitalization. And I don't think that will stop. And I think that will continue. And once digitalization proceeds further and further, it enables many new things in all of your areas. And the third, of course, is really the area of sustainability. Now, we use that as a catchphrase for a number of things. Climate change, obviously goes without saying. I think the whole concept of equality, diversity, and so on. And I think all that is embodied by, in this whole idea of sustainability. Now, the thing I'd like to really address to the panel is, in light of these global challenges, and in fact, we're in a world in which these three forces are actually interacting. They're not just isolated instances. You know, how do you think Hong Kong could rise up to these challenges? You know, and actually deal with these, first of all, but also to take a look at how these are developing and to actually take advantage of this as an opportunity and actually create a new role for Hong Kong. What is that new role for Hong Kong that you see? Should I
Call out names?
Well, I used to be a professor myself. I used to make cold calls. So, so why don't we go from the speaking order and start with Gigi first, and
Thank
then
you, Victor.
Adrian, etc. Yeah.
Okay, I think, Victor, I think you touched on a few things. Tech and the digitalization of life in general, the geopolitical situation, the outward-looking nature of Hong Kong, and how we adjust, how we find our new positioning in light of everything that's going on, and of course sustainability, inclusivity, David mentioned green financing, equality, etc. I think I will maybe first address the first one. There's always been, technology is always disrupted, right? Crypto was mentioned, NFTs were mentioned, but I think this disruption, NFTs and crypto, is not as state-of-the-art as, say, for example, paper money, right? In the Tang Dynasty, paper money was invented, and that was state-of-the-art because first you have to invent paper is state-of-the-art, and then you use it as a financial instrument. And then sometime later, the banker's check, the check that you write your name and sign your name on it, that is also state-of-the-art because that utilized the printing press at that time, also the forefront of technology. So now we're really doing what has been done throughout history. And if you look at these two prior instances of fintech, I think what they were just people trying to find new ways to make society work. And when you discover a new technology, so humans 2 million years ago discovered fire, right? And fire really transformed, the way humans lived. We could cook food, we can manipulate the environment, etc. So all these discoveries changed the way we live, changed the way, most importantly, how we thought of the world. And I think the thought process, the transformation of thought, is the true innovation. And like I said, the prior three examples, it will take a little while for us to figure it out. We might, I'm sure our Neanderthal ancestors burned down a few things that they didn't mean to burn in the beginning. And same as the banker's check or the paper money, there was plenty of fraud back in the day. But eventually, when we get good at coordinating with each other how to make things work, it works. And that's the innovation that we need from everybody, is the thought innovation rather than just the technology.
Thank you. Gigi, why don't we move on to Adrian?
Your question is, despite all the challenges, what's the new role for Hong Kong?
Exactly.
Yeah. So what challenges do you think there are?
Well, the three ones that are impacting us every day: the geopolitics, the digitalization, technology, technological change, and the need for really addressing the sustainability issue.
Okay. So for geopolitics, I think for Hong Kong, for the past 100 years, Hong Kong has been very blessed and it's a safe harbor. For Hong Kong, it's a place where you can do a lot of transactions, you do a lot of businesses, a lot of free flow of capital. So Hong Kong has been a very good trading port from fishing village to current international financial center. So despite any challenges that you addressed, I think Hong Kong is a safe harbor. We're very blessed on that. So I don't think there's any big challenges to that for the next many, many decades. For technology, I think it's just digitalization is something like you're having TV in the 50s. So it's a process where it's people making things much more convenient. And I don't think that is something that is going to be a challenge. It's only a mentality. I talk about the idea of being a creator economy, but not a creative economy. There's a difference. Being a creator, you are creating things. You can create a brand. You can create a consumer brand. You can open a restaurant. It's a mentality. It's a state of mind. We are always servicing. We have been a trading port. Things come and things go. But we need to start to have our own grounded IPs, products that we can export around the world, because our positioning is already there. We are an East meet West city. We are a place where we have a very special entity to it, and we are working and connecting with Greater Bay Area, with our motherland, and having that market as our garden as well. So that is already there. It's about what's the mentality? What are we doing? Are we still focusing on our own old industries, like all the service industries, or are we moving away from that or transforming? I'm not saying that, David, I'm not saying that banking is not great. I mean, I wish I'm in HSBC. But I'm saying that we should really have a new thinking on, and it's a kind of a mental state, a state of mind of what we should be in the next 25 years. And that is important. So digitalization of technology is just part of the way, it's a process for us to create. So it shouldn't be a challenge. It's like owning a TV, having internet, right? Having Web 2.0. Now we're going Web 3.0, going to metaverse, or we call the cryptos. And it was like, wow, America, why we're looking at that. But it's in the same thing when we're looking at internet, when we're owning a TV, owning these kind. It's just part of life that we need to just progress. So what our mental state needs to be embracing enough and positive enough. And then also having a more 10 years plan on how to create new industries that can complement with our current industries right now. And technology-wise, I think there's two types of technologies. One type is called disruptive technologies, and the second one is called practical technologies. Don't focus on the disruptive technologies, because that's a gimmick. Focus on the practical innovations, practical technologies that help companies, corporates to move away from certain obsolete business models to something that is more relevant to current audience. I mentioned about millennials, post-millennials, because we're not focusing on the right audience. Everyone is focusing on your glories, but not on the current audience or the future audience. So it's all about the mental state. It's not about whether it's not about this idea or that idea are challenges. These things are not challenges. These things are going to be there no matter what. And we just need to embrace it. But how do we embrace it? It's about how you change your mind.
Okay, well, very well said, Adrian. I think the whole idea is to meet these challenges. A lot of people do think they're challenges, but to really think about them as opportunities, to actually, it's part of life. Let's not even call it opportunity. Part of life that you adapt to, that you look to the future. And I like the pragmatic aspect of looking at some things that are less disruptive technology, which is the glory part, is a lot of 好睇唔好食, and really do something practical. And I think Uncle Fred will follow up with some very pragmatic questions. But let's go on to you first, David, and then Dee, before we turn it over to Fred.
Sure, but I think it's well covered. I like the word thoughts from Gigi. I like the word state of mind. I just perhaps use that to choice. It almost covers the three topics you mentioned. When you talk about geopolitics, turning challenges to opportunities, the point is, there are if you think there are no national strategies that are actually crossing the two systems, except for GBA. So that's actually for you to express, first of all, the manifestation of how Hong Kong is an international financial center, and look at the enormous market and the tremendous governance complexity that China has. This is an opportunity. It's arguably one of the most complex problem statement that in politics. If there wasn't an intent for running this sort of arrangement, there wouldn't be two systems. There wouldn't need to be a national strategy for that. We need to embrace that. It's a pioneering work. We're doing a lot of work in Connects, Wealth Connect, Insurance Connects, etc. None of them, we can't sit here and expect to be served a cup of tea. There's a lot of work to make sure that work is done, thoughtfulness is done in payments, in data, in taxes, and also to ensure that the experience is good for the next generation. This is sort of the work is now. The digital piece is even more. I mean, Gigi put it well. I said it at the FinTech Week. The finance happened since time began, when some guy gave another person a cow, and then it was paid in seashells a day later. That's finance, right? So thereafter, it's using different technology to continue to iterate. And so going into the digital space is just an involvement in making the experience better. Particularly, I was talking to Gary Liao and SCMP today. I particularly like the notion of what using blockchain and NFT, that notion of exchange brings, because as you sell or as you craft the first NFT and you gradually transact throughout, the incremental value as it evolves get passed back to the originator. And that's a totally different way and different mindset of changing. Whether that drives equity or not, we don't know. But certainly, it's a much more, it's a much newer form of medium exchange that we need to look into. Sustainability I've spoken about. Just don't want to take up time.
Yeah. No, thank you very much, David. I must say, I can't agree with you more. You're speaking my language. If you think about it, the Pearl River Delta and what we call now the Greater Bay Area is really an amalgamation of all these forces. And Hong Kong has actually evolved as a result of that. And I think Hong Kong will continue to evolve and handle these challenges as opportunities in the context of the Pearl River Delta and our integration, if you would, or interaction with the Pearl River Delta, that would actually use this as both our melting pot, our experimental ground, our area for additional creator activity, etc., etc. But I'd like you to also think, how do we actually integrate our experience with the Greater Bay Area with our linkage with the rest of the world? How Hong Kong could also play a role in linking the GBA, in fact, with the world, and indeed the Chinese mainland with the world through Hong Kong. And where do we start? For example, like the ASEAN countries. But anyway, let me go on to D. Okay, David, please.
Well, no. I mean, just very quickly
Yeah.
on your point is, and it touches on sustainability, and that is, gosh, I can't even think of the breadth and depth of roles that Hong Kong can play on sustainability. And it's not just finance, it's not just green exchanges, it's not just carbon exchanges, etc. It could be anybody here, etc. I was excited by one of the probably earlier non-commercialized thought sort of idea that came from the science park, where it's just looking at technology on concrete that sequesters carbon. And how amazing would that be in driving and flipping entirely an industry that drives carbon emission into absorbing carbon emissions. And it's immediately commercial, it's immediately able to monetize some ideas like that. So there's a lot of room to play in Hong Kong.
Absolutely. Thank you. Dee?
I guess I'll address how how we will be able to continue our role as a mediator, whether it's to China or to the West, how, what the role Hong Kong has to play and how we'll do that. And I think, we speak of this Hong Kong, but what is Hong Kong? Hong Kong is a city made up of people. And so I think what we need to do to be able to capture all of these opportunities, to be able to play a part in the world, is actually to start learning more about ourselves. And in learning about ourselves, we understand ourselves as people and are better able to recognize the other as in their similarities to us. And only through this level of communication, and what the future will take is communication, is the ability to share and to listen. That cannot come without an understanding of ourselves and an ability to share experience and be less large in how we think. Everything will start, technology breaks us down into smaller and smaller pieces, but at the end of the day, we are a discrete entity in ourselves, and that is really how we communicate and create change. The systems that are large and the pieces that are small work around us as human beings. So that's why I constantly, I speak a lot about the arts, but I think it's very important for us to re-understand the human experience and to be able to connect on that level so that we really have a reason for wanting some of these things that we see going forward, especially around sustainability, and so that we can actually have the baseline ability to be able to share and express that.
Understanding ourselves and really a true deep understanding of our community and its development and its needs. It's a perfect segue, Fred, into, I know, the question you would like to ask. But before that, does Gigi have a point that you want to make?
Yes, if I may.
Yeah.
I actually quite like what Dee's talked about in terms of the big chunks and the small chunks. And because sometimes, I guess, as a Hong Kong person, it's so easy to feel very overwhelmed, with everything that's going on, geopolitics, climate emergency. And I think part of the way to make it work is to manage it into kind of bite-sized chunks, right? So I think one of the dangers to, say, for example, mental health is to feel completely overwhelmed and you just throw your hands up and I give up, I don't know what to do. But that is counterproductive. So we need to actually find a way to break down big questions into manageable chunks and find solutions for the small chunks.
Gigi mentioned at her remark that President Xi's line on common prosperity, page 503. So I want to ask all the speakers, what are your thoughts on tackling income disparity in Hong Kong, which is a serious problem? What do you see as the role of the private sector in creating a stronger, healthier, and more equitable economy in Hong Kong over the next 25 years? Shall we start with David this time?
Well,
are you going to give away money?
The short answer is we have not done enough. I think we need to look at ways that's going to be more potent than giving away money. I think, I was speaking to one of the a tech company in Hong Kong, and this disparity, in case we feel like, well, it's them and us, and it's just an inequality thing. No, it's not, because it actually drives mutual outcomes. You wanted to grow the city. You have technology companies that says, I said, where are your people? And they're like, well, no, I drive technology, so I just give them shares, and hopefully they find hopeful, and then I pay a fraction of the price. And I said, wow, great. So, but they said very few people are in Hong Kong because they can't pay the rents. So they don't want the shares. They want a baseline salary so they can pay the rents, and they don't want creativity that Adrian was craving Hong Kong for. So it's a big problem because the prosperity and the common prosperity needs to come from that. And I think, don't have the fullest of science, but I do think we need to think about economics of mutuality, quoting from a professor from Oxford, that it's not really about quarter-on-quarter profits. It's really not about even dishing money just on one occasions, but driving as a body. I benefited here with the only person that didn't have a speech by having all the people that had great details I could feed off. It's somewhat similar to that. In the economics of mutuality, you just have to draw a common purpose, and I think it's extremely ambitious to name out a goal of common prosperity and drive it towards that. And I hope I'm not too sensitive, but I think profitability and shareholder returns in general is a component, and it's not the be-all and end-all of the purpose of the corporate. It's not enough to just drive corporate social responsibility and have a generous and healthy dose of charitable donations to give away. It really should be in the blood of the business. Same with sustainability, same with financial crime on our side of the business.
Thank you. D?
I very much agree with what David said. I think income inequality is one of the greatest ills of our time. And I think we need to deal with this in a multi-pronged approach. And in business, it's two-part. It's one, not optimizing only against returns, but it's also about recognizing that you're working with people, and as a company, trying to understand how your organization is there to empower and engage everyone who works for you, rather than treating them as cogs in a machine towards your end goal. Societally, I also think, we really need to think about what success looks like and what a flourishing life encompasses. Because when the values are all based around money and wealth, what happens is we end up diminishing the talents and opportunities for people which are not directly towards the accumulation of capital. Now, of course, we live in a city and there are material needs for people to be able to survive. But I agree with David, it's not just about giving people more money, it's giving people an idea about what life should be about, what they will enjoy to have and to create and to live their lives with or without. And from there, to understand income inequality not merely as inequity of money, but also as inequity of possibilities, right? And what possibilities are allowed.
Gigi?
So I'm going to rock the boat here and propose something like a UBI, a Universal Basic Income. I know people don't like this. We are a capitalist society with Chinese characteristics. Sorry, did I say that right? No, a socialist society with Chinese characteristics. Sorry. But, if you look at places like Scandinavia, it's a popular thing to talk about in the US. In Macau, you have a lot of money that's just deposited to you. And I guess throughout the pandemic, a lot of people could not really survive without quote-unquote handouts. And with UBI, there will be some people that, take it and use it to play video games or gamble it away or spend it on poison, but then there will be people that actually use it for education or buy that very critical piece of equipment that they needed for their business, et cetera, et cetera. So I think it's worth exploring. I think if, just speaking from my experience of working with the grassroots in Hong Kong, I think Hong Kong has already done quite a good job with the elderly, and the social services provide a safety net. But there are always going to be vices that kind of cause people to break through and fall through the net. But I do think in terms of businesses, the whole idea or how we operate as businesses has transformed. As Zuckerberg has said, make more profit so that we can build better services as opposed to build better services so we can make more money. So I think everything's been turned on its head because we all realize that we have a corporate and social responsibility, and we are all very much interconnected, and we see the suffering of other people. I think the biggest danger actually is that we turn ourselves into these little information bubbles, and we only see people similar to ourselves, and we don't see the suffering or people different from us, and that's the cause of conflict and problems. If we want humans to have empathy, then we need to be exposed to diverse environments.
Adrian?
Okay, I'll make this quick because I mentioned a little bit during my speech about creating shared value. I think it's an approach, how you approach it, and whether you're just saying it or you're making it into action. For me, I'm more a practitioner, I'm more practical. So if instead of just donating money, as what our panelists were saying, we should look at creating shared value and sharing resources and all these. But the most important thing, I think, is to convince your company to focus on stakeholder value instead of just shareholder value. I think number one. Okay, that's a very practical approach, because you can say a lot, say we should do this and that on our annual report, but you're not doing it because you can't convince your stakeholders or internal stakeholders to focus on external stakeholder value. Number one. Secondly is let your entire company to be on the ground, and don't just donate money because you don't know how the money was used, whether the money is going to be in the pocket of the needies. Why don't you go into the districts, you go and look at it and see how you're going to make sure your resources is going to be into the pockets of the needies. Okay, that's a frontline obsession approach. And for me, when you need masks, we create a manufacturing factory and produce masks. When you need land, we donate land. Okay, when you need housing problems, we create NGOs, and we discuss about the NGOs, and we try to help and alleviate that as well. So everything is direct and sharing our resources, and not really being distracted by all these ideologies and things that was talking about charity and things that we want to save the world. Because what we want to do ultimately is to help.
Excellent messages from the four speakers. Uncle Victor, we are running quite tight on time. You have the honor of asking the last question from the moderators before we open it to the floor, okay?
Okay, then thank you very much, Uncle Fred. No, I'll do it quick then. We talk a lot about the next 25 years and the future. And I truly appreciate, some of the deep thought that you guys have actually shared with us. So if we can now fast forward to 25 years from now, and you guys will be, really moving towards the peak of your careers, et cetera, and really at the pinnacle. I may still be around to watch you, but I'll be in my wheelchair. Can you, in 1 minute, describe the Hong Kong that you see in 25 years? I'll just go boom, 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 boom. How about you first, Adrian?
Hong Kong in 25 years?
Yeah, just
as I said,
yes. Describe the Hong Kong of 25 years.
Okay, so as I said, I'm very optimistic about the next 25 years of Hong Kong. But in a little bit Taiwan, I want to say, the challenges that you mentioned, sorry, Uncle Victor, no offense, but I think the biggest challenge is how do we empower our next generation to grab that opportunity for the next generation, the next 25 years. That's the most important. How do we, Hong Kong has done so well on doing this, but how does everyone empower our next generation to grab the opportunity in Greater Bay Area, grab the opportunity in Asia and the world, and also position yourself not to create a new creator economy. Sorry to repeat that. So I think that's something that I will hopefully see in the next 25 years, that we have so many post-millennials that are thriving, blooming, and also being global, but yet also grabbing the opportunity in Greater Bay.
Great. Boom.
Boom. The year is 2046, and you know what that means. It means Hong Kong is a smart city, and we're doing really good. So the year 2046, I think we've embraced our identity as a Chinese city, and we are able to leverage the talent that we have in Hong Kong. We're able to use not just technology, but our knowledge and the workforce, the studious force, the human capital that we have, and able to use this to its full capacity and let it be a contributing society for the whole world.
D.
I see us as a hub, a connector. I hope to see us as a city of people who are engaged and who are passionate and who are able to live in a situation where they feel respected and empowered. And I hope to see us, or I know we will still be, dancing and horse racing.
For sure. And the bankers always have the last word. David.
I'm always a listener.
Right.
The reason why I said I'm in trepidation is, I don't think many people got the last 2.5 years right. So 25 years later, definitely hope to be dancing and horse racing. Equally, someone from China Water Risk told me that the water level might be just outside of HSBC at Queen's Road. But I think the key is what Adrian said, we need to be hopeful. There is a way. There's a way to just build life and bring hope to that. I told Jardines that at least they've got the second floor kind of walkway so they can kind of be like a bit of like Venice. There's always a way around things, and I think it will be that sort of spirit in Hong Kong.
Very good. Well, we're going to open this session to the floor. I think we can entertain maybe only 2 or 3 questions, so we will try to achieve diversity. One question from a more mature person, one question from a younger person, and maybe, also pay attention to gender. Okay, who wants to kick off first? Any questions from the floor? Someone who's young, I guess. Yes, it's a young person.
Yeah, close enough. Hi, Hudson Lockett, Financial Times. My question is primarily for Gigi and D. You're both a testament to the fact that Hong Kong has no shortage of professional, talented women. But we recently ran the numbers at the FT and discovered that there are still more white men on the boards of Hang Seng Index companies than there are women of any background. So in many ways, it kind of feels like Hong Kong is stuck in an era that is not too much different from back in the 90s when Nina Wong was sort of making waves as the only female tycoon. So why do so few Nina Wongs seem to break into the upper ranks of Hong Kong's business elite? And what are the steps necessary to change that?
Well, Nina Wang was a really fantastic woman, my grandmother. So, yeah, gender equality. I think there's a long way to go. Not just gender equality, but also the diversity of boards in general. How can we achieve ethnic minorities, sexual minorities? Can we get the companies to have better thinking? I think it was Ray Dalio that actually said, diversity is actually the best protection that you have for any system. Because if you have an echo chamber, then you're just exposed to that kind of limited segment of ideas. So if we can achieve diversity within businesses, that's already a good start. I think it's not just businesses, I think it's government, I think it's NGOs, I think from all sectors of society, institutions, in academia. I think we already do very well because we have a section of the workforce, the women that hold up half the sky, were able to enter the workforce because they're freed from the laborers at home. But unfortunately, that's nowhere near enough in terms of the top tiers. So I'm also of the opinion that regulation or some guidances have to be in place for certain quote-unquote quotas. And once you open that up, then capable women will just kind of pop up and say, hey, actually I'm available. I'm happy to step up to the plate and do my part. But if we are sort of an inward-looking board, then you will never achieve that. So I do think that some level of guidance from practice notes is in order.
So I think I'm actually here on this stage only because my grandfather had no sons. My grandfather had no sons, and his eldest child was my mother. My aunt came 11 years later, and again, she was a daughter. In my family, opportunities were not based on sex because there were no choices. Now, obviously, I have two parents, and my father does have sons. And I grew up in a situation that is still very patriarchal, although given my parents' divorce and that I grew up with my mother and in her household, I was shown a lot more opportunity than perhaps those girls born into the ideal family situation. As a young woman, I struggled with the expectations of the heteronormative society and with issues that girls face around, am I pretty enough? Am I female enough? If I speak up, are you going to see me as bossy? Am I not conforming? And without realizing, of course, I'd internalized all of this. And I must admit that it is a process that I still work on to remind myself that I am a human being, I am female, but that makes me, in any way I want, equal to a male, other than in my ability to have a lot of children that I may not know about. So how do I see this changing, though, is really by constantly having this conversation, by constantly being willing to remind the girls and the guys in the room that this is silent, but it is here. I recently have noticed that in my grandmother's generation, she was a housewife, and today, women who choose not to work but to stay home are generally refer to themselves as full-time moms. Well, I actually think this is sort of problematic because while the word housewife refers to this idea of a wife and a wife being subservient, right? It still recognizes this woman in her role as a manager of a household. as more than, I mean, as a wife most likely was a mother. And, a mother, a full-time career woman still can also be a full-time mother. You don't get to be a part-time very much. And so I think we need to constantly remind people of the expectations or the ideas that we've internalized and ask people, is that really what you want? Is that really what you think? And then give them the room to push up against these constructed boundaries, and that will drive change and the diversity that we need to ensure that we have a sustainable future. Thank you.
Now we go to a more mature gentleman, Carlson Tong, chairman of UGC, is going to ask a question. You give mic to Carlson.
Thank you, Fred. First of all, I want to thank the speakers and moderators for the speeches and questions. I'm inspired by what they've said. Now, one thing I want to ask, we heard a lot about people, about common purpose, technology, all the challenges. I would like to ask, wearing my hat as UGC chairman, is our education system fit for purpose to educate our young people so that they can succeed in this brave new world? At present, our education system is very much driven by academic results, like admission to university. Is that the right way forward? Thank you.
Well, we may stay here for 2 hours on this topic, but I'll see if the speakers want to respond to our UGC chairman in, say, a couple minutes. Gigi, you want to speak first?
I'll try,
yeah, okay.
try my
Go
best.
ahead.
I actually think the 9 years of free education, you attend university and then you're done for the rest of your life, I think this system is flawed. I think this system is for people that die when you're 30 years old. Now, life expectancy in Hong Kong is, I think, 84 for men and 92 if you're female. So I think women especially need more schooling because you're going to live longer. And you shouldn't front load all your learning, right? So maybe you front load a bit so you know the basics, but what tells you to stop after you're 23? Nothing, right? You should, there should be sabbaticals. You should go back into education every 2 or 3 years because the world is changing so fast, and education, as we've learned in the past 2 years of the pandemic, is so online now, right? And so it's very easy to learn, and yet well, I think in listed companies we have CPD, but that's nowhere near enough because most people don't really do it. So we need to change this system where we front load the learning, and we should learn as we live, and every few years. So for the 84-year-old person, we should put him or her back in school. We should ask them to learn. We should not say, oh, I'm old and wise and I know everything, and I have the honorary professorships, and I'm only entitled to teach. No. Okay, no names here, sorry. But there you go.
Thank you. Okay. David?
Yeah, not my field, but just seems to be a broader question you're asking, and again, I was just thinking earlier on in the day on sort of a decentralized autonomous organization model, because it seems like you would somewhere implied would be asking about the curator of truth. Right, so you're saying, I totally agree with Gigi, by the way. I need re-education, at my age. The velocity of knowledge is moving so fast. There's a much broader democratization of information that we need to absorb. But I don't know if you are also asking about how do you guide truth, how do you guide, values, no, I think, it's doing a pretty good job. But in Hong Kong, but it's likely, I think education needs stewardship. I don't think it can just be a robot or iPad or etc. It's relational. Even if it's momentarily untidy relationships, it needs to be that, and it needs to be curated.
Any other speakers would like to?
I'm going to admit that I went to international school, boarding school, and then university in the States. So my personal experience with education in Hong Kong may not be the norm, but I mean, obviously I have many friends and now children of friends who are of the system. And I think my biggest concern is the fact that education in Hong Kong doesn't spark curiosity. It doesn't spark joy, and it doesn't spark a desire to learn. I think there's no system that will be perfect, and technology will allow us to create more personalized solutions, more way to learn skills. But the biggest question for the system as a whole is how do we ensure that when people pass through this system, they will continue to want more?
Well, looks like Adrian's not interested to respond.
No, I can respond. I'm just enjoying the conversation. As the CEO of Chao for Education, I don't want to comment on the education system. But I want to emphasize on one thing, is that I really think Hong Kong education system needs to focus more on ethics, values training. I think that's very important. The reason why is this. When Uncle Victor was talking about the challenges in digitalization and technology, that will drive people away and removing us from being human. And we forget to become humane. So what we need to do is going back to become a human and retrain ourselves of being how to become a humane human being. And that we need to focus on ethics, being a human, how we embrace human values, and be compassionate.
Very good. I'm sure we could go on and on, but due to time constraint, I'm afraid we have to cut the floor discussion. And I would like to invite Professor Edward Chen to summarize the lecture. This is always, historically, this is always the highlight because, you know, Professor Chen was our teacher 50 years ago. He taught me economics 50 years ago, and he was able to really teach us so well. You know, even the most difficult subject he can summarize in such easy to understand terms. So, Professor Chen, over to you.
I have to admit, this is the most difficult summary, you know, I'm asked to do in the past 15 years. Because in the past 15 years, it was usually facts I summarized. That would be easy. But today, I'm going to summarize feeling, emotion, belief. That's very challenging. Now today, we all come here to look for an answer about the future of Hong Kong, the next 25 years. Now, what are we going to bring home? What is the takeaway? I have a clear answer, and I have a clear takeaway. Now, but before that, let me say, actually, it's very easy to understand the speeches. There are two common threads running through all the speeches, and two keywords. The one common thread and keyword is the word technology, of course. Everybody spoke about technology. And we all know about the importance of technology. And by that, we mean digital technology, information and communication technology. It brings a lot of benefits to us, like interconnectedness. We are so close to each other. FinTech, PropTech, You know, it's all technology helping us. But technology has also brought problems, challenges, all brought up by the speakers. That is digital divide. Digital technology has also brought huge problems to human beings. So technology is a key word, running through all the speakers. The good things, the bad things, the ugly things. The second key word and second common thread, again, running through all the speeches, is the word sustainability. I like it. I like sustainability is not in a narrow sense of the word sustainability, but in a much wider sense of sustaining human mankind. I like the way saying it. When we do business, all of you are business people. We are not just creating value for shareholders, but there's a sense of social responsibility. There's a sense of social progress. So that is a very important aspect of doing business and a very important aspect of sustainability. So I'm very pleased to hear all the things about how to make social progress, how to resolve the problem of income inequality. That is a problem which no one would be able to handle. And we hear so much about climate change. Well, I hear about diversity. Now, these are all social responsibilities, and these are all about sustainability in the longer term. So I'm very pleased to hear from the young leaders. So the clear answer, then, with all these words about technology and sustainability, should we miss Hong Kong the next 25 years, or should we not? Now, that's an answer. Now, of course, there's an implied optimism among all the speakers, but I would like actually the answer given by David. It all depends on you, your choice. If you make the right choice, then stay here. Don't miss the next 25 years. If you don't make the right choices, if you don't handle technology right, if you don't manage sustainability, then maybe the next 25 years is not so bright. So thank you very much once again for all the speakers for coming to my lecture. Thank you.
Thank you, Professor Chen. Please remain on stage for a group photo. Please be seated for group photos. Please be seated for a group photo.